Now we're going to see the estimated due date, which is the date when the baby is going to be born. So this is, we take 40 weeks plus the first day of the last menstrual period. So this is because physiologically we should take 38 weeks plus the date of conception. So we will put here the duration of the menstrual cycle to see or to know why we have this difference between 2 weeks, depending on how we count or based on what we count to estimate the due date. So we have, well, this is going to be a menstrual cycle of 28 days long, which is 4 weeks. So we have here week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So from week 1 to week 2 we have the FSH phase, which is the proliferative phase, which is 14 days long, I mean these 2 weeks. And then we have here is when we have the peak of LH or the LH surge, and then we continue having LH, which is decreasing, but we continue having LH for 14 days, which is 2 weeks. And then if there is no conception going on, then we have the menstrual, then we have menstruation. And then the cycle starts again. So I'm going to put this again. We have week 1, week 2, and then week 3, and then week 4. And so conception is going to occur when there is ovulation. So conception or ovulation is going to be the same day, which is here at the moment of the LH surge, which is in this 28-day long menstrual cycle, is 14 days after when does the FSH phase started. So the estimated due date is 38 weeks after the conception date. So starting from here, which is the conception date, 38 weeks after this is the estimated due date. But most of the time we don't know exactly when was the conception date. So we don't know this date, but we know the last menstrual period. So let's say this is the last menstrual period, that is here. So let's say this is after menstruation. Then we have 2 weeks of FSH. Then we have 2 weeks of LH or the secretory phase. And if there is no conception going on, then we have menstruation, and then we continue having FSH phase or the proliferative phase, week 1, week 2. Then if there haven't been conception yet, we will have ovulation here, and then the LH phase or the secretory phase. And so here we have, I'm going to put in blue like the dates the woman is aware of. So here the one knows this date, when was the menstruation, and also when was this menstruation. So if the conception was on this date, on the when was the ovulation, the woman doesn't know when was this date, but she knows this date, and the ovulation date is 14 days after this menstruation date, which the woman is aware of. So if there haven't been ovulation yet, if it wouldn't have been ovulation yet, we would have menstruation here, then 2 weeks of proliferative phase, then 2 weeks of secretory phase, then menstruation again, then 2 weeks of proliferative phase again, and then 2 weeks of secretory phase again. But if conception started here, then after this point there is not going to be menstruation, but the patient knows this, or in the case the patient knows this date, we can start counting gestational weeks based on this date, on the last menstrual period. So in order to equalize the 38-week plus conception due date with the gestational gestation based on last menstrual period, we just need to add 2 weeks. So if, let's say, the due date is going to be here, which is 38 weeks plus the conception date, the woman doesn't know this date, but she knows this date, and the last menstrual period was 14 days before the date of conception. So starting from the last menstrual period, when is going to be the due date is going to be this same length, which is 38 weeks starting from here, plus these 2 weeks more. So it's going to be 38 weeks, which is the normal length starting from conception, plus these 2 weeks, which correspond to the proliferative phase before ovulation. So plus the 2 weeks that corresponds to the proliferative phase before, which is before ovulation started. So to estimate the gestational age or the due date based on the last menstrual period is going to be the same as conception, or the same as based on conception date, plus we need to add these 2 weeks, which is the difference between the last menstrual period and the conception date. And in the next video we are going to see some examples of how the due date based on the last menstrual period is not going to be too accurate based on the last menstrual period when we have different length of menstrual cycle. For example, here this is with 28-day long menstrual cycle. When the last menstrual period is 2 weeks apart from the ovulation date, but the normal duration of the menstrual cycle is 21 to 35 days, or 3 weeks to 5 weeks. So in the next video we're going to see how this variation, how if we have this variation, it is not going to correspond exactly to the estimated due date with Naegele rule, because Naegele rule is 40 weeks plus the last menstrual period, but 40 weeks is based on a 28-day long menstrual cycle, because it is 38 weeks plus these 2 weeks, and this is specifically in this 28 long duration of the menstrual cycle. So in the next video we're going to have examples with 21